Do not forget, class, that in making the introduction, we have to avoid the dictionary definition or description of our problem. Instead, we have to assert what do we see about the problem at hand. We have to introduce it and then expound it with literatures and studies, and then we even have to establish the urgency of conducting that study. So how do you establish the urgency? You may present the current situation of the problem, such as stating statistical data about your problem. Okay? And then do not forget that at the end of the introduction, you have to state the objective of your study. What is the purpose of your study? Now, after the introduction will be the statements of the problem. For the statement of the problem, we have two parts. The first part is a general statement of the whole problem. It's just like the ending of your introduction, di ba? Sa ending sa introduction, I told you to state the purpose or the objective of the study. So for the statement of the problem, the first part is you have to restate the general objective of your study, and then it is followed by the specific questions or sub-problems into which the general problem is broken down. So again, the first part is the general statement of the objective of your study or the general problem, and then after that we will break down the problem into smaller parts or sub problems as we call them. So again, ang statement of the problem consists of specific questions to be answered by the researcher on the basis of the data that may be gathered through the instruments, which may either be in form of questionnaires, interviews, or both, or even through experiment. So ang mga questions, class, nga ibutang nato sa statement of the problem is kanaganing gikan gihapon sa ato ang general problem, pero ang kanina mga specific question dapat matubag nato ni siya sa ato ang results. So kung unsa ang ato ang procedure, dapat matubag tanan nga questions dito. Dili ta magbutang og question sa statement of the problem na walay labot sa ato ang data nga mag-gather. Okay? So kung unsa ang mag-gather na data, maulang po dapat to ang naang question sa statement of the problem. So unsa ang mga example sa questions nga ibutang nato sa SOP? So we have here the questions under the statement of the problem must be arranged in the order of the researcher's research design. So most of the quantitative descriptive research, in which I believe 3 groups here, ang study, ang research design kay quantitative descriptive research. Most of the time, if your study is quantitative descriptive, the first question is about the demographic profile of the respondents. And when you say demographic profile, examples of those are the age, the gender, the civil status, the income, the educational attainment, the religion, etc. But please remember that you don't need to include all the demographic profile. You have to identify in your study what demographic profiles are important to be included or important na masagot sa result ninyo. So how do you know that? Depende kasi siya sa needs sa study ninyo. Unsa day ang need sa inyong study? Unsa ang inyuhang gusto i-establish sa inyuhang study? Gusto ba ninyo ma-establish ang age sa mga respondents ninyo so that we can see that different age groups have different answers sa inyuhang mga questions, sa mga succeeding questions ninyo? Or mas important ang gender? Nga mas ma-establish nato nga naay kalahian ba ang babae o ang lalaki. So again, it depends on the need of your study. You have to identify it kasi kamo man ang magbuhat sa inyuhang study. Okay? So these are just examples of demographic profile. Again, depende na siya. Profile na siya sa inyuhang respondents, characteristics nila. So kung So kung sa tanaw ninyo, both age and gender are important, then you may include both. And then another thing, siguro important din ang educational attainment. So you can also include educational attainment. So again, most of the quantitative descriptive research starts with the establishment of the demographic profile of the respondents of your study. So other questions other than the demographic profile, ano na siya, iba't ibang questions that are relevant to your problem. Para ma-achieve nato itong objective nato, general objective, kailangan nato siya i-break down and dito na siya after sa demographic profile. So question on problems encountered by the respondents, pwede siya in terms of either their physical, social, psychological, or professional as the need arises. So again, depende paghihapon siya sa inyong study. And you may also include other questions that may have close bearing with the study on hand. And also class, this one is important kasi you really have to have a question that may determine significant relationships of the variable, factors, or constructs, or their significant differences. Actually, the first part of the the first few questions in the statement of the problem should start with descriptive statistics na mga question. So when you say descriptive na statistics, pag mag-answer na ang inyong respondents, pag i-analyze na ninyo ang data, you will just use descriptive statistics like the mean, the standard deviation, the frequency distribution, or the percentage. So mauna siya ang first few questions. Kailangan ninyo na siya i-establish. And then, at the end, ang last ninyo nga question in your study should be answered using inferential statistics. So inferential statistics is like testing the hypothesis, katong mga gipangtun-an nato sa statistics nato, kung nangita mo og significant difference, then we can use t-test or ANOVA, or if mas importante sa inyong study ang determination of the relationship of the variables, then you can use inferential statistical tools like correlation, Pearson, Spearman, etc. So mao ni siya ang important sa statement of the problem. So let me give you an example of some statement of the problem here in my study. So as you can see, this is how I make the statement of the problem. Di ba ingon ko, the first part should be a general statement of the problem or the general objective. So in this study, my general objective is to really develop an instructional material in teaching pharmacology. And to achieve this thing, to really develop the instructional material, I have to answer the questions below. Kasi I believe these questions will help me answer, will help me develop the instructional material na aim yun ako sa akong study. So mo ni siya, actually, since this is not really a quantitative descriptive study, this is mixed method, so actually wala na akong nag-establish og demographic profile of my respondents. Kasi ang ako mga respondents are all pharmacy graduates sa GSD-MSFI. So I think no need to establish those things. So nagdiretso na ko sa mga questions like, kung tanawin ninyo class, most of my questions started with what? What? Kasi what can be answered using descriptive statistics. So just like this one, what is the status of teaching pharmacology in terms of course content, PLA, instructional materials, forms of assessment. Kasi when I know the status of teaching pharmacology, it would help me to develop the instructional material. And then I also have a question in like this one, what is the performance level of the students sa following topics ni siya sa pharmacology? So again, I included this question because I also believe that knowing the performance of the graduates when they took the pharmacology will also help me in developing the instructional material. So I get to know saan ang strength nila, saan sila mababa. So kung doon sila mababa, I can back it up with the instructional material that I'll be making. Okay? So again, ang mga questions should be related to the general problem and should help you achieve that general objective. So another thing here, since this is class a mixed method, so kaning first two questions are quantitative, meaning I'll have numerical data here. I'll have numerical data with the status. I have numerical data with the performance level also. But the next questions are actually qualitative. So though it also started with what, but since I was looking for the experiences, remember experiences cannot be quantified. So ano na siya, quali na ni siya nga part. But again, wala may quali nga research sa atua. So you don't need number 3, number 4, and even number 5. Kasi number 5 is when I know the status, the performance, the experiences of both students and teachers. That's when I get to decide how am I going to develop the manual. So this study is not really hypothesis testing. As you can see, wala ko'y question sa is there a significant difference or is there a significant relationship. I don't need that in my study. So you can actually, you yourselves should identify what questions are you going to include to achieve your objectives, or is it necessary to have a question na just like is there a significant difference or is there a significant relationship? So this one again are examples of questions sa statement of the problem. Let me give you another example. This one is for my master's na thesis. Magipakita din ako ang itlog nyo. Wait lang ha. Doing anti-angiogenic studies not really that difficult. The difficult part here is daghan kay kong gibuhat ni himo pa hugti. Daghan kay kong testing na pa ko ilaga. Wait lang. Let me go back to the statement of the problem of this study. So this study class is experimental. Again, the title of this is Anti-Angiogenic Activity and Bioremediation Capacity of Colocasia esculenta taro and what's the other plant? It's the Kalanchow pinnata katakataka leaves ethanolic extract. I think it's formulated tea. So statement of the problem, again, as you see sa screen, I started again with the general statement of objective or the general statement of my problem in the study. My general objective is to really evaluate the anti-angiogenic activity and also the bioremediation capacity of the formulated tea from the two plants I had. The Kalanchow pinnata or the katakataka and the Colocasia esculenta taro leaves. By the way, if you have plant materials in your study, the correct way of presenting the names is nauna dapat ang scientific name, syempre naka-italize, and it is followed by the common name inside an open and close parenthesis. Now, since I have stated the general objective of the study, I move on to the specific questions. So again, these specific questions will help me achieve my general objectives. So actually, di ba ingon ko sa inyo ha, I spent more than 100,000 for this study because as you can see, I have 7 questions here. And remember, if you include a question in the statement of the problem, you have to do that in your methodology and you have to have a result for that. So kailangan na ay result nga makuha. So mo ni akong number 1 nga question, what are the functional groups present in the plants using the FTIR analysis? So before nako gi-check ang activities like the anti-angiogenic and the bioremediation capacity, I first identified the functional groups present in my plant. I believe you are already done with your organic chemistry and you are familiar with the different organic compounds or functional groups like mga carboxylic acid, ether, ester, alkanes, alkenes, alkynes. Mauna akong first i-identify using the Fourier transform infrared spectrophotometer na analysis. So that's the first one. Tapos number 2, napakoy question. What is the acute oral toxicity dose of the two plants based on the OECD guidelines? So after determining the functional groups present, the functional group will help me know kung unsa ba ang naa sa akong plant that makes it a possible agent for the certain activity na ako ang gina-investigate. Tapos syempre since I'll be giving this one is a drug, so it is also important to establish the toxicity dose of my plant. And then I also have here the median inhibitory concentration against free radicals. Nag-establish pa ko og another activity pag yun, the antioxidant activity. Number 3 and number 4 are both determination of the antioxidant activity of my plants. Kasi katong anti-angiogenic activity is closely related to the antioxidant activity. So, kailangan po na ko ma-determine ang concentration o at the same time ang activity nga antioxidant sa ako ang plant. You can also explore this kind of study for the experimental one, ha? Nga antioxidants, ana. Tapos, since I formulated a tea, so nag-establish pa ko sa microbial limit ug sa heavy metal content of my plant. Kasi, remember, if daghan heavy metal, then my plant will be toxic. And also the microbial limit. Kasi there are certain bacteria that should not be seen in our pharmaceutical preparation. And then, before ko nangutana og what is the bioremediation capacity, and then nag-determine pa kog morphology, particle size, elemental composition of my plants using scanning electron microscope. Naghanki kong question class before ko nakaabot sa what is the anti-angiogenic activity of my plant. And then I have there sa number 9, di kabuk akong question, no? Manandugay kay ko na human. Ang last jud na ko nga question, syempre inferential statistics. Naabay, since duha ka book ako ang plant, so I want to know if there is a significant difference on the anti-angiogenic activity of my two plants. Okay? So, remember, isa lang ako ang general objective. It's just one sentence, but after that, na-breakdown siya at least into 9 questions. And kaning 9 questions, I answered them all sa ako ang results section through the methodologies na gigamit nako. So mapod na inyong buhaton class sa inyong statement of the problem. I-break down ninyo sila into different questions that you believe will help you answer your general objectives. Okay, do you have questions about the statement of the problem? That should be written after the introduction, ha? Wala? Wala pa. Nag-loading pa. Anyway, this is being recorded for your future reference. No, there is actually no limit for the needed questions. When I say limit, kung unsa kadaghan, pero naa siya limit sa unsa kagamay. At least you have 3 questions there, 3 pataas. Muna siya ang ideal na inyuhang problem will be broken down to at least 3 questions. 3 specific questions. Pero again, sa mga descriptive ang study, you have to first establish the demographic profile of your respondents. Anything else? Wala na? Wala na. So let us continue. The next part will be the assumptions, but we don't really include this one in our study. Most of the studies that include assumptions are qualitative research. Pero wala may qualitative sa inyo ha, so dili na kailangan. Again, quanti-descriptive and quanti-experimental, dili na kailangan ang assumptions. Ang assumptions kasi are belief that forms one of the basis for the research. So, ang kaning mga beliefs na ni don't need to be tested. Unlike hypothesis, pag nakay hypothesis class, i-test good na nimo kung tama ba ang imong hypothesis. Remember, ang hypothesis is an educated guess or a tentative solution to our problem. So, mo na ang kalahian nila sa assumption. Si assumption is just your belief, pero it doesn't need to be tested anymore. So, dili na siya kailangan eksperimentuhan pa, i-prove pa kung tama ba or dili. Therefore, class, ang belief is not really that much stated sa research proposal. So, example of assumptions, examples ni sila ha. This is how you state an assumption. This study is conducted on the following assumptions. Again, belief na nimo, but this one does not need to be tested. First, that the doctors and staff will use the proposed system. So this one is a study na kanang nagabuhat sila og system for a certain clinic management. So ang ilahang pagtuog yun na after the conduct of the study, the doctors and the staff will be using the system na ginahimo sa researcher. And number 2, that the current clinic management is done manually and now requires automation. So that's the belief of the researcher that the current situation is that the clinic uses a manual system. And they also believe that it also needs automation. So, muna nag-propose sila og system. So, kani siya, belief lang ni siya sa researcher, pero wala ni siya ginatest. Therefore, again, we don't really state the assumption sa ato ang study. Kung sa atong ginastate, ang ato ang hypothesis. So hypothesis is an expected or speculated outcome of the study which serves as a point or direction in the process of the research work. It's our tentative solution to our problem, an educated guess or a speculated outcome. So, mo na siyang ato ang pagtan-aw na mauni ang makuha nato sa ato ang study, mauni ang outcome sa ato ang study. Paghuman sa tanan. That's hypothesis. But again, the difference of this from the assumption is we really need to test our hypothesis whether it is true or not. So again, it is a tentative. It is tentative because it can only be finally evaluated after the variables shall have been tested. I believe I have already discussed sa inyo ha sa statistics what are the different types of our hypothesis. We have here the null and the research or alternative hypothesis. So, mostly, ang ginagamit nato sa research kay ang null. Okay? Null ha. Pero you can also have the research or alternative. Pero commonly again, ang ginagamit the null. So when you say null hypothesis, this denies the existence of an attribute, a significant relationship, or a characteristic that spells the difference between noted phenomena. Ginadeny ang existence sa significant relationship or difference or characteristic sa ato ang mga variables. So since we are denying their existence, the null hypothesis is stated in the negative form. So just like this, there is no significant difference between the efficiency of male and female radiologic technologists in the hospital laboratories. So the guess here, the speculated outcome is walay difference, walay significant difference ang efficiency sa babae ug sa lalaki ng mga rad tech sa hospital. So, class, ang inyong hypothesis nakadepende sa inyong SOP. So, for example, the first example I had, diba, was the development of pharmacology laboratory manual. So, kung tanawon na to, wala ni siya actually hypothesis. Nga naman, my first question asked about the status of teaching pharmacology. Pag nangutan na kaugwat, what is the status? Most likely, ang tubag lang ani is, ang gamito nato na statistics kay mean and then the standard deviation. The mean sa status, sa course content, sa teaching learning activities, instructional materials, and forms of assessments. Sa number 2 pod, what is the performance level of the students in the following topics? So performance level lang, I just want to get the mean also here. Mean performance nila sa kaning first na topic, second na topic, and so on. And sa number 3, number 4, and number 5, labaw na ni walay hypothesis. So kung walay hypothesis, diretso na siya class. Walay hypothesis, diretso na ka sa next part of the introduction. So significance of the study ang sunod. Okay? Kaning experiences, since this is answerable by qualitative na data, so you don't need hypothesis also here. Wala kay hypothesis na i-test. But looking back at the masteral thesis I presented, okay, looking back at the statement of the problem of my masteral na thesis, so since 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, silang tanan nag-ask og what. So pag what gani ang pangutana ana, most likely tubagon lang pud nimo siya kung sa iyang ginapangutana. Most of the time we will use mean kasi pila man na siya ka trials. So kuon lang nato ang mean sa bawat test nga ako ang i-conduct din ha. But take note of the number 9 na statement of the problem. Is there a significant difference on the anti-angiogenic activity of Kalanchoe, Pinnata, Katakataka, and Colocasia esculenta, taro leaves ethanolic extract? So this time, since na ako'y pangutana that is answerable using an inferential statistics, then pag inferential statistics, na siya hypothesis. So ang ako ang gigamit din null hypothesis in the negative form. Kung paano nimo gi-state ang statement of the problem, that's how you should state the null hypothesis also. So the null hypothesis here, himuon lang nimo siya og declarative nga statement and then you just state it sa negative nga form. So ano ni siya? There is no significant difference on the anti-angiogenic activity of the Kalanchoe pinnata and the Colocasia esculenta leaves ethanolic extract. Ana lang sad. Dili pwede nga lahi imuhang SOP niya, lahi pud imuhang gibutang sa hypothesis. Kasi ang hypothesis diba is an educated outcome. So kay naamang kay question din ha, na kay educated na or speculated outcome. So speculate ta karon nga walay difference ang activity, anti-angiogenic activity ni Kalanchoe pinnata ug ni Colocasia esculenta. So muna siya null hypothesis. Una siyang atuang i-establish ansiran sa atuang study using our methodology. The other type of hypothesis is called alternative hypothesis or research hypothesis. This type of hypothesis is just stated in the positive form. Again, positive form ha. So kung the other one denies the existence of the relationship or the difference between variables, this time sa alternative hypothesis, we are affirming or confirming the existence of those attributes. Okay? So you just have to remove the no or the not in the sentence. So just like this, there is a significant difference between efficiency of male and female radiologic technologists in the hospital laboratories. Pero to be uniform, everyone, please use the null hypothesis in your study. Okay? So, 3 parts na to siya, class. Introduction. After the introduction, the statement of the problem. And if your study requires hypothesis, then you have to use the null hypothesis. That's the first part of the introduction that you need to accomplish until Friday. Okay? So, sa Friday, we will be waiting, the advisors will be waiting for your first part of the chapter 1. And before I forget, wala at ako nag-state o grading system, no? So for midterm, since we only have midterm no sa midterm and finals sa summer, the lecture is still 60%. So sa 60% na 40% syempre ang exam, 30% ang quiz, 15% ang tanang assignment or output na ako ang ihatag sa inyo ha, that includes the gisubmit ninyong concept paper and all the other assignments that I will give you, and then 15% participation including the attendance. That's for the lecture, but for the lab, take note, for the laboratory, there is 30% peer evaluation. So at the end of the grading period, I will be asking you to submit evaluation sa inyong mga kagrupo. Kasi kamuman ang nakabalo kung unsa kadaghan ang ilahang gitabang. So you need to have peer evaluation. It's 30% of your lab grade, 40% from your output, or that is your manuscript. So, mo ni siya karon ang akong ginaingon sa inyo ha, that your advisors will be waiting for the first part of the chapter 1 until Friday. Dira na siya mahulog sa 40% output or manuscript. And 40%, another 40% will be coming from your attendance sa tanang conference na ipatawag sa inyong advisor. When I say conference, that will be the consultation time. So pag moingon ang inyong advisor na mag-consultation ta karong hapon, everybody should be present. Pag absent, minus sa 40%. And the advisors evaluation. That is your, this one is ang grade ninyo sa midterm na siya. The finals will be different. Sa finals, the same component sa lecture but different na sa lab. I will inform you sa finals kasi included na din ha ang defense. Sa lab na siya mahulog. Okay, sa Friday, let me emphasize again or reiterate that this one, sa Friday, ang inyong ipasa sa inyong advisor kay ang introduction, ang SOP, ug ang hypothesis. Okay? I hope klaro na siya. Introduction, SOP, and hypothesis. So, divide ko na siya para dili pud kaayo bugat sa inyong part. Okay? So, sa format, that should be short, unsa ganinang short, legal or kalimut ko basta short. And then for the margin, that should be 1 sa taas, 1 sa baba, 1 sa right, pero 1.5 sa left. That's for the margin. Now for the font is Times New Roman, size 12, spacing double. Again, ang font is Times New Roman, font size is 12, spacing double. You have to justify also the paragraph. So I believe you can really make an introduction na 1.5 pages kasi double space na class, naka-double space na, dili na siya single space. So mabawas-bawasan ang words. Okay? Any question? Any question about the first part of the introduction? This is not chapter 1 ha. This should be introduction. Ay, stop share noon. So ang next part nato class, this will be next week. Next week nato ni siya i-accomplish. The next part is writing the part 2 of the introduction sa thesis ninyo, and that will start with the significance of the study. So the significance of the study will indicate the importance of your study to any group which may derive any form of benefits from the findings of the study. This one is a very important part of the introduction because this is where you establish the importance of your study. So dili banggod ang isa ka element sa research, di ba, is dapat beneficial siya. So kailangan ma-identify nato kinsa ang mag-benefit sa results sa atong study. I'm talking about the results ha. Kung mao ni imong results, kinsa ang mag-benefit ani? We have to identify the people or the group of people na maka-benefit sa inyong result sa study. So you have to answer the following questions in identifying or making the significance of the study. First, who do you think will benefit from the result of your study? After ma-identify ninyo kinsa ang mag-benefit, you also have to identify what particular benefits for particular beneficiaries could be derived from the study. So again, number 1, kinsa ang mag-benefit sa study ninyo. Ug number 2, unsa ilahang ma-benefit sa inyong study. So to give you an example, this is how you write the significance of the study. So this is actually from my thesis study, no, katong sa instructional materials sa pharmacology. So I started with a general statement again. This study aims to contribute to the following people or group of people who will benefit the instructional material for pharmacology. Since my objective is making an instructional material, so kinsa ang mag-benefit ato? So I have identified here some, dili ni tanan ha kay kung unsa lang ako na screenshot, mao lang ako na-appeal din. Pero actually daghan ni siya. So number 1, nakapasunod na siya class. When you make the significance of the study, nakapasunod na siya. Ang number 1 ana, kinsa gyud ang pinaka number 1 mag-benefit sa inyong study. Mao po dapat ang nauna din ha. And you have to write it in this format. Okay? Pharmacy students, syempre ang number 1 na akong na-identify nga mag-benefit sa akong study. And this is followed by the statement kung unsa ang benefit nga ilahang makuha. So for example, this study will benefit the pharmacy students, especially those who are currently taking up pharmacology, through the knowledge, skills, and confidence they will gain by connecting what they have learned in the classroom to actual practical laboratory procedures. Kasi mao man siya akong ginahimo instructional material for the laboratory. So mag-benefit gid ang pharmacy student, number 1 din ha. And then number 2, syempre ang faculty, this will serve as an important guide for the pharmacy instructors in designing teaching strategies to reinforce the essence of pharmacology in the curriculum. And so on. So including ang researcher, I myself will also benefit from my own study. So kamusad na pud may makuhang benefit. And then other higher educational institutions will most likely benefit from my study also. Let me see my other study. This one is a different, different format because this is the format of the UIC. Since masters na kami nga study. So UIC ang format. Don't have significance of study here. This is not complete. Yeah, I don't have significance of the study. The format of the UIC does not include significance of the study. But nonetheless, moto siya ang example sa significance of the study. So isa-isahon ninyo ha, tanan nga sa tan-aw ninyo mag-benefit sa inyong study o kailangan pud ninyo i-explain unsa ang ilahang makuha nga benefit. Okay? Questions for the significance of the study. Again, this is not included sa part 1 ha. This is not yet included sa inyuhang ipasa sa Friday. This is included in the part 2 and next week pa atong deadline for this. Questions so far? Wala. So, ang next class, ipadiretso na ako, I still have 5 minutes. Ang next part of the chapter 1 is the theoretical framework. So, from the name itself, theoretical framework, this part of the introduction will talk about the theory, the principle or concept wherein your study is being anchored. So again, this draws up the rationale of the research problem or the basis kanang any scientific theory, principle, or concept, or even law kung asa nakabase ang atuang study. Okay? So this calls for a theory upon which the central theme of the research problem is anchored. And unsa lang ang atong isulat sa theoretical framework? Sa theoretical framework, we will present the abstract, the facts or laws, variables, and their relations that explain and predict how an observed phenomenon exists and operates. So pag mangita mo og theory class kung asa ninyo i-anchor ang inyong study, you have to obtain the following. Syempre, the name or the names of the author of that theory, including the place and the time or year when he or she postulated the principle or the theory. And then number 2, you also have to obtain the part of the theory that is relevant to your study. And number 3, synthesis by relating the theory to your findings. Okay, so this is an example of a theoretical framework. This is still sa sa katong pharmacology atani. Yeah, sa pharmacology manual, development of the pharmacology laboratory manual. So sa pag-develop nako sa pharmacology laboratory manual, the study was being anchored in the theory of constructivism. So you really have to look for theories ha, may it be psychological, educational, or scientific theories nga mo fit in dito sa inyong study. So ang ako theory of constructivism stating that how people learn is based on observation and scientific study. Kasi my objective was to make a laboratory manual, and we learn if we observe it directly or kanang kita mismo ang mag-experience sa mga butang. Mao na nga ang theory nako is theory of constructivism. So you have to study your own research and look for theories na magamit ninyo sa inyong study. Sa mga experimental nga study class, the theory is not necessarily a scientific theory, pero pwede ninyo ibutang sa conceptual framework din ha is unsa ang naa sa inyong plant ngano mo nakaingon nga naa siya certain pharmacological activity. So just like this example, so this was my master's na study. Since my study was experimental, so wala ko nangita actually og theory. Sa mga descriptive mga mga study, naagyod na sila makita ng mga theory of constructivism, katong mga theory ni Maslow's, katong mga hierarchy of needs, depende kung mo fit in siya sa inyong study. Pag-abot sa experimental, we don't really have those theories. So, ang ako ang theory nga gibutang din here, actually results of experiments sa uban. So, just like this one, sa Kalanchoe-Pinata, I enumerated the different phytochemicals present in the plant. That is also true for the Colocasia esculenta. And then, after establishing that these are the phytochems present in my plant, I discussed the certain phytochemical that may be responsible for the activity, just like for the antioxidant na activity. And also, the phytochem, I also identified kung asa nga phytochem ang pwede na ko i-attribute ang katong anti-angiogenic nga activity. So that's how you will make your theoretical framework for the experimental na studies. But for the descriptive na studies and for qualitative researches, you really have to look for theories where you can anchor your study. Okay? Questions? Before to mag-end, it's already 11:30. Wala. Again, these are significance in the study and theoretical framework are not yet included sa atuang ipasa karong Friday. Questions? Wala. Okay, if you have difficulty in making your introduction, your SOP, and also your hypothesis, you can always ask your advisor. Ha? I believe mo tubag yun na sila klase mo kabalaka.